Aches and pains. I mean, we all get them, right? But what if I told you that the way we've been treating them for decades might be missing a huge piece of the puzzle? In this explainer, we're going to dig into the real science of why we hurt and how the answer might be hiding in a place you'd never expect.
You know, it's a language everyone speaks. That dull throb in your lower back after a long day, or that sharp little twinge in your knee when you're just trying to take the stairs. Musculoskeletal pain, or MSK pain for short. It's one of the most common human experiences out there. It's just a constant reminder of the physical lives we lead.
So just how big of a problem are we talking about here? Well, take a look at this number, 7.5%. That's the percentage of the entire global population that's dealing with low back pain alone. It is the single leading reason for disability worldwide. So yeah, this isn't just a minor inconvenience, it's a massive public health issue.
Okay, so we've got this universal ache that affects pretty much everyone at some point. But with a problem this common, how do we usually go about trying to fix it?
Well, for decades, the standard medical playbook has basically treated pain like a ladder you need to climb. And each rung you go up represents a more powerful, a more potent intervention in the fight against all that discomfort.
And this is it. This is the World Health Organization's analgesic ladder. The logic behind it is actually pretty simple. As your pain gets worse, you climb the ladder. So you might start out on the bottom rung with non-opioids like ibuprofen. If that's not cutting it, you move up to so-called weak opioids like tramadol. Still in pain? The next steps could be minimally invasive procedures, and then at the very top, you have the strong opioids like morphine.
So the toolkit for climbing this ladder has your usual suspects, non-opioids for milder pain, and then opioids for the more severe cases. But then there's this really interesting third category called adjuvants. Now, these are drugs like antidepressants that weren't even made for pain in the first place, but they can sometimes be used to kind of boost the effects of other painkillers.
Now, on paper, this ladder seems so clean, so logical. But in the real world, the climb is just full of hidden risks and complexities. And that's where this whole seemingly straightforward approach really starts to break down.
You see, here's one of the core problems with the ladder. Not all pain is the same. It's not even close. On one hand, you've got what's called nociceptive pain. Think of this like a fire alarm for your body. You sprain your ankle, the alarm goes off, and the pain tells you, hey, stop using that. It's a helpful warning sign. But on the other hand, you have neuropathic pain. This is more like faulty wiring in the alarm system itself. The nerves are damaged and they're sending out false signals. A one-size-fits-all ladder really struggles to deal with two completely different problems like these.
And that's when you start to see the cracks in the armor. Common anti-inflammatories, or NSAIDs, are often way overused. Those adjuvant drugs we just talked about, they're frequently used off-label, which is basically an educated guess by a doctor. And maybe the most critical part, for long-term chronic pain, the evidence that opioids are even an effective solution is surprisingly weak.
You know, a big part of the problem is just perception. Take a drug like gabapentin. There's this common idea that it's not addictive compared to opioids, and that's led to it being prescribed for pain all over the place. But just because it's not an opioid, that doesn't mean it comes without its own set of risks.
And it's a really similar story with the opioids themselves. The research argues that this whole idea of sorting them into weak versus strong is actually pretty misleading and dangerous. It can give people a false sense of security, which can contribute to misuse and harm. Because, you know, at the end of the day, an opioid is an opioid, and they all carry a serious risk of addiction.
So if this drug-based ladder is so shaky, what are we missing?
Well, it turns out the next frontier in understanding our pain might not be in the pharmacy at all. It might be in your gut.
And this brings us to a concept called leaky gut syndrome. Okay, so imagine the barrier of your intestines is like a really good bouncer at a club. It's supposed to be very selective about who it lets through. Well, with leaky gut, that bouncer gets a little lazy, the barrier becomes too permeable, it starts letting things like bacteria and toxins leak into your bloodstream where they absolutely do not belong. And that can trigger a low-grade, constant state of inflammation all throughout your body.
This right here is what researchers are now calling the gut musculoskeletal axis. And honestly, it's a total game changer. It shows exactly how an unhealthy gut can become leaky, which then allows toxins to get into your bloodstream. This, in turn, puts your immune system on high alert, creating that constant low-grade inflammation we were just talking about, everywhere. And that inflammation can directly fuel your aches and pains.
So you can see pretty clearly how this becomes a really vicious cycle. The gut barrier is compromised, that lets harmful stuff into the blood, your immune system freaks out and creates chronic inflammation, and that inflammation just makes your aches and pains even worse, and harder to recover from. Your gut health is directly connected to how your muscles and your joints feel. It's incredible.
All of this really points to a much more complete picture, doesn't it? If pain isn't just some local problem that you can fix with a pill, but is actually connected to these bigger, systemic issues like gut health, then maybe our whole approach needs to be broader. Maybe we need to start treating the whole person.
This is really the foundation of what's called the biopsychosocial model of pain. It's this idea that pain isn't just about the bio, the physical damage to your tissues. It's also influenced by the psycho, so our thoughts, our emotions, and the social, our environment, our relationships. All three of these things work together to create our actual experience of pain.
And if you want to see just how powerful these psycho and social parts of that equation are, get a load of this number. In some clinical trials for osteoarthritis, up to 75% of the pain reduction people felt was chalked up not to the drug itself, but to the placebo effect and other contextual factors. We're talking about things like the patient's own belief that they would get better or their trust in the doctor. I mean, that's a staggering finding.
So we're left with this final thought. We started out with a simple ladder of pills, but our journey took us through nerve pathways, gut bacteria, and the incredible power of the mind. It really makes you wonder, is the future of pain relief actually about finding a stronger pill? Or is it about a deeper understanding that the key to fixing our aches and pains might not be in a bottle at all, but might have been inside us the whole time?